Notice. Check to make sure it's working. Yes, we are live. Okay. Hold on a sec. Make sure we got this. Jaiva Dharma. Okay. Okay, we are ready to go. Just let me get the guitar out and we can start chanting. All right, let's make sure that it's the right microphone. Microphone. Yeah, okay. Alrighty. We're going to chant Jaiva Dharma. How about that? Which basically means wake up. Jaiva Jago, Jaiva Jago, Gorachana Bole. Jaiva Jago, Jaiva Jago, Gorachana Bole. Kudalina Yao Maya Bisachira Kole. Yao Maya Isachira Kole. Ajiva Maria say Samsara Vita Lay to me Avijala Jaiva Maria say Samsara Vita Lay to me Avijala Bandura Jai Tomara Tomare Laite Abi Oinu Avatara Amipina Bandura Jai Tomara Shoni Maya Nasi Paranani Naman Mantra Now to be money Shoni Maya Nasi Paranani Ani Naman Moria Prabhu Jante Priya Seya Nama Mantra Loila Mangira Chijago Chijago Gorachana Indra Maya Isachirago Chijago Chijago Gorachana Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Chanko, Haribo, 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 Jai Om Vishnupad. Paramahamsa, Paramacharya, also Teta, such as Shrimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anandakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya, Srila Vilas Thakur Ki Jai, Param Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Sayama Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagannatha Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Chinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deja Tarni. So we're going to read the translation. Lord Gaurachandra is calling. Wake up, sleeping soul. Wake up, sleeping soul. How long will you sleep in the lap of a witch called Maya? You have forgotten the way of devotional service and are lost in the cycle of birth and death. I have descended just to save you. I am your only true friend. Other than me, what friend do you have? I have brought the medicine that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you suffer. Take this great chant for deliverance, Maha Mantra, the names of Hari. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur falling at the Lord's lotus feet. Take shelter of the Hari Nam mantra, the Lord's holy names. Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai. So, with that in mind, we're going to continue studying Bhaktivinoda Thakur's magna opus, the great work, which is called the Jaiva Dharma. And this Jaiva Dharma deals with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness presented in terms of stories, dialogues between different devotees and aspiring devotees. And we can learn a lot about our philosophy by hearing this Jaiva Dharma. Okay, so with that in mind, Om Gana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Okay, so now we're going to share the screen. Okay, there we go. Alright, I think I need to adjust this screen. Alright. And move the chat window so I can see if anyone has a heart attack during the class. I can go and save them. So, okay, we just finished with a section here where you see the little cursor. I don't know if you can see the cursor. But anyway, the last quote from the Gopal Tapani Upanishad. So this particular section of the chapter deals with proving that Krishna has a abode in the spiritual world called Goloka, and the Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur proves this utilizing quotes from the Shrutis. The Shrutis means that which is heard, which means the Upanishads and the four, what's called the original Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, and Samaveda. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Gijaya. So here's another question. So in other words, Krishna's position, Krishna's spiritual world, has all been proven by quotes from the Vedic literatures. So next is another question. Brajanath. So for those of you who just joined us, Brajanath is talking to the Babaji, who is his guru. So Brajanath said, why do the Tantrika Brahmanas call Shiva Shakti the Adya Shakti? That means the first Shakti. Sometimes Adi Shakti or Adya Shakti. So why do we find Tantrika Brahmins? Tantrika Brahmins generally, in this particular context, means left-handed tantrics. So left-handed tantrics do all sorts of interesting things, like eat meat, take intoxication, eat fish, use obscene mudras, and have illicit life. So that's generally what they do. And sometimes they use Lord Shiva's example to justify what they're doing. For example, you find that Lord Shiva drank an ocean of poison. Some of his followers think that they can smoke ganja and still be a follower of Lord Shiva, because they're just doing what their Ishta Devata does. One is supposed to follow the Ishta Devata, not imitate the Ishta Devata. That's a little bit different. Just like Krishna dances with so many gopis in the middle of the night, but we're not meant to dance with any gopis in the daytime or in the night or evening or early morning. I was just listening to a memory, Srila Prabhupada's memory. Let me just open the door here and get some air. That's better. I was just listening to a memory. A devotee was remembering what Prabhupada said. In the beginning days of the ashram in the movement, they were just men, and then the women started to move into the ashram. And Prabhupada, in order to get the consciousness straight with the devotees, he said, you should remember, these are Krishna's girls, not yours. That was very good. Anyway, so Babaji answers Rajanath's question by saying the Shakti of Shiva is Maya Shakti. In other words, Shiva's energy is the external energy of the Lord, not the internal energy. The external energy of the Lord is not the Aja Shakti. So, it's Maya. Maya means illusion in a sense. In Maya there are three gunas. I think you all know about this. Sattva, Raja, and Tama. Goodness, passion, and ignorancia. The Brahmanas who are endowed with Sattva worship Maya, controller of the gunas, in a relatively pure way. So in other words, those who are in the mode of goodness, they worship Maya, Durga. Now we're not talking about transcendental mode of goodness, we're just talking about material mode of goodness, okay? The Brahmanas endowed with Rajas worship Maya, endowed with Rajas, passion. The Brahmanas endowed with Tamas worship Maya, the controller of tamas and darkness, thinking it is knowledge. Actually, Maya is just a transformation of the Lord Shakti. This is very interesting. Shakti Parinam is the exact Sanskrit word for this. The transformation of the Lord's energies. Anyway, the Lord never becomes transformed. Brahman is never transformed. But the energies of Brahman become transformed. So it is not a separate or independent Shakti known as Maya. In other words, it's just a transformation of the Adi Shakti. Maya is a shadow transformation of the Lord's Shakti. This material world is a shadow manifestation. Maya is the cause, here's the key, of the Jiva's bondage and liberation, when she lets us go. When the Jiva is Bahir Mukha, Bahir Mukha means the face away. What does that mean? We turn our face away from Krishna. That may be literal or figurative. In other words, we turn towards the not Krishna. So everything that is not Krishna is illusion. That's described in the Lord Shati Shloki verses. Arate vritam na pratyeta chatmani tadvidyad atmano mayo yata basha yata tamaha. That anything without relationship to me, Krishna says, know that to be my illusory energy, which is like a reflection that appears in darkness. So when we turn our face away from Krishna, we get Maya. So it says Maya, this is about us, punishes the Jiva, us, by binding him or her to material objects. When the Jiva turns to Krishna, Maya manifests Sattva Guna and gives knowledge of Krishna to the Jiva, because Maya is also Vaishnavi. Vaishnavi means Maya is a devotee. Remember that. So Maya can help us in Krishna consciousness or impede our Krishna consciousness. And she impedes our Krishna consciousness when we are not interested in Krishna. We turn our face, literally and figuratively, away from Krishna. Person is bound to Maya's gunas, that means goodness, passion, and ignorance, cannot see that Maya is a reflection of the Swarup Shakti. Swarup means his own or the spiritual energy of Krishna. So this Maya or illusion or this force of the three modes and the force of contemplating something that is not as ourselves That is Maya. So, they established Maya as the Ajya Shakti, original Shakti. For the jivas bewildered by Maya, the exalted conclusion will only manifest by sukriti, means piety, or spiritual piety. Without sukriti, it will not manifest. In other words, you won't understand this unless you're actually doing some devotional service. And that devotional service can begin with adyata sukriti, which means accidentally you're doing devotional service. You come across a pure devotee and you do something for him. Just like when Prabhupada was preaching in 26 2nd Avenue, one time someone who was a street person came in carrying a roll of toilet paper and placed that in the bathroom as a gift. And Prabhupada said he is beginning his devotional service. So that is sukriti, agyata sukriti. So here's another question. Brajanath said, in worshipping Gokula, means Krishna's abode, Durga is considered among the followers of the Lord. Who is the Durga in Gokula? This is interesting. Babaji answers, she is Yoga Maya. Wow. So the Durga in Gokula is Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya is the personality who arranges for Krishna's pastimes in the spiritual world. And she arranges it by sometimes, or in Goloka Vrindavan all the time almost, having the devotees forget that Krishna is God, so they can relate to him in an intimate way. And also Krishna sometimes takes advantage of this Yoga Maya to forget that he's God, so he can have a good time. He forgets about his, what's called the ontological position. That means who he is. So that's Yoga Maya. So she stays there as transformed seed of the Chit Shakti, the internal potency. She is an expansion of the internal potency. So when she stays in the spiritual world, she considers herself not different from the Swarup Shakti, the internal potency of the Lord, Krishna's own personal Shakti. Her transformation is material Maya. Understand? So, thus, the Durga situated in the material world is a servant to the other Durga in the spiritual world. The Durga within the Chit Shakti, that means the spiritual world, is a Shakti energy which nourishes Krishna's pastimes. When the gopis take support of Padakya Bhava, what does that mean? The conjugal love between Krishna and the gopis. So when the gopis are absorbed in this conjugal mood with Krishna, that's what Padakya Bhava means, and nourish the rasa of Krishna, the eternal abode, that bhava is given by Yoga Maya. So Yoga Maya is very, very important. And she's an expansion of the Swarup Shakti. So we have spiritual expansions, and of course the Adi Shakti is Radharani. And so from Radharani comes the principal gopis, the first, of course, the Lita and Vishaka, principal gopis, and the other Nitya Parshada, the eternal associates, eternal gopis. And also, Radharani, you have the expansion of Krishna's wives, specifically Satyabhama, and then the other wives expand from Satyabhama. Even though Rukmini is the first wife, Satyabhama is more of a direct expansion from Srimati Radharani than Rukmini is. So, anyway, so then you have Then, of course, they have the goddesses of fortune that expand from the wives of Krishna and Dwarka. And also, there's other expansions that come from the internal potency in the spiritual world, which originally emanates or originally is there in Srimati Radharani. And so those other personalities are the different associates of Krishna, like Yogamaya, who arranges everything for Krishna in the spiritual world. And yeah, so Yogamaya is an expansion ultimately of Radharani. So Yogamaya, yeah, she's the director in one sense of Krishna's pastimes in the spiritual world. So that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying here. When the gopis take support of Parikiya Bhav and nourish the rasa of Krishna in the eternal abode, that Bhav is given by Yogamaya. She's the director of Krishna's play. Leela. Bhagavatam says Yogamaya Mupashrita. Krishna employed Yogamaya. That's from the Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 29th chapter, text 10. There are many activities in the spiritual play of the Swarup Shakti, the spiritual potency of the Lord, which appear to be activities of ignorance, but it is not ignorance. That ignorance is produced by Yogamaya to nourish the rasa dance. One can understand all these matters in the discussion on rasa. So ignorance means to ignore or forget something or not be aware of something. We're ignorant of, I don't know what the weather's going to be tomorrow. So that ignorance is employed and produced by Yogamaya so the rasa dance can take place. Because if people are realizing, or the gopis are realizing that Krishna is God, they're not going to dance with God. It's too intimidating. Just like if Krishna were to come here into the room today, as we're on the internet, of course I put the camera on him. That would be the first thing I would do. But if Krishna were to come and Krishna would say, give me a hug. I'd say, oh my God. I'd probably faint before I did that. Anyway, but if I were to forget that he was God, just, some really cool looking guy who wants to be my friend, I said, hi friend, just slap him on the back and everything like that. Like, this is what happened with Arjuna. Before the battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna was relating with Krishna as his buddy, on equal level. And so they'd lay on the same bed and, joke and slap each other and do all sorts of things like that. That's Yogamaya. So Yogamaya enables the rasa dance to take place, enables Yashoda Mai's pastimes with Krishna to take place, enables Krishna's friends to play with him. All these things. Whatever's happening in the holy Dham. So Brajanath asked another question. These are important questions and important answers. Brajanath said, I would like to know something more related to the Dhamma. That means the abode of Krishna. Please explain it. Why do Vaishnavas call Navadvip a Dhamma? So the word Navadvip means 9 islands, specifically refers to where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu not only was born or appeared, but enacted his early pastimes before he took sannyasa at the ripe old age of 24. Babaji said, Navadvip Dham is not different from Vrindavan Dham. In fact, it's also called, Gupta Vrindavan. Gupta Vrindavan means hidden Vrindavan. Not so many people know about it. Hidden. Naham Prakasha Saravasha Yogamaya Samavrata. Mayapur is its highest place. As Gokul is the highest place in Braj, so Mayapur is the most elevated place in Navadvip. Mayapur is one of the islands of Navadvip. Navadvipa means 9 islands. So that's where Krishna appeared as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we're going to hear about this in a second. Mayapur is the Maha Yoga Peak of Navadvip Dham. That means where the Lord appeared. The Lord's Purnavatara is covered in Kali Yuga Chana. Kala. So what is Purna Avatar? Oh, let's take the word avatar. Avatar means to cross down. Tara means to cross, Ava means down. So when the Lord appears in this world, he comes down from the spiritual world. Not exactly a geographical down. It's not that, Krishna's up there in the sky, but it's down in a sort of like, how would you say, poetic sense. So, and the word Purna means complete. So when we talk about the complete avatar, complete person who comes down, that's only Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. Because other avatars are actually portions or plenary portions of Krishna. That means expansions of Krishna. And they're missing certain qualities that only Krishna has, and only Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have. The Lord's Purna Avatar is covered in Kali Yuga, Chana Kala. It means Chana. It's covered. Avatar. Similarly, his Dham Navadvip is also covered. That means hidden, not covered with a cloth or something. There's no tirtha like Navadvip in Kali Yuga. There's no tirtha means holy place. It also means crossing place. Well, tirtha, like a bridge. It means a bridge or something like that. So when you have a tirtha, it's a crossing place to the spiritual world, or it's like an embassy of the spiritual world. There's no tirtha like Navadvip in Kali Yuga. Nothing else equals Navadvip. The person who can understand the spiritual nature of Navadvip becomes qualified for living in Braja. So in other words, if you understand the spiritual nature, position of Navadvip, especially Mayapur, then you can live in Braj, and not till then. Both Braja, that means Vrindavan, and Navadvip, of course Navadvip in this world, just to explain for those who don't know, it's a few hours away from Calcutta. It's in West Bengal. And Braja, or Vrindavan, is actually in Uttar Pradesh, and it's near Delhi, a few hours away from Delhi. Both Braja and Navadvip appear to be material to the eyes of the materialist. Those who by good fortune open their spiritual eyes can see the Dham. So, Prabhupada describes it as like having a veneer over something. Veneer means a very, very, let's say, small covering, thin covering over something. Usually it's used in terms of a wood veneer. Let's say if you have a plastic table and you put wood over it, it looks like the whole thing is wood. And it's not. It's actually plastic underneath. So in the same way, both Braj and Navadvip have this veneer, which is a veneer of what? Yogamaya. And we have Yogamaya there. And that Yogamaya protects the Dham, the abode of the Lord, from rascals. Rascals entering into the mystery of what the Dham is. So if you don't really see the real face or real nature of the Dham, that's because Yogamaya is impeding your vision, because, not that she doesn't like you, she's impeding your vision because you turn your face away from Krishna. So she keeps Krishna, yourself, from seeing Krishna. She hides Krishna from you unless you are actually purified. So here's another question, or near statement of something he wants to know, Brajanath wants to know. He says, I desire to know the swarup, the form, and the nature of Navadvip. Okay, good question. Babaji said, Goloka, Vrindavan, and Svetadvipa, that means the White Island in the spiritual world, are the central portions of the spiritual sky. In Goloka, Krishna performs Swakya pastimes married. It's interesting. In Vrindavana, he performs Padakiya pastimes unmarried. In Svetadvipa, he performs supplementary pastimes, things that are connected. So this is like the spiritual world. So in the central portion of the spiritual world are Goloka, Vrindavan, and Svetadvipa. Sometimes you even say Goloka, Vrindavan. And in some descriptions, Goloka refers to everything, and some, including Vrindavan, and some you have this differentiation. But in any case, there is an area in the spiritual realm, in, let's say, Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna is married to the gopis. We're not talking right now about Dwarka or Mathura. We're talking about an area in Goloka, in the spiritual realm, where there are married pastimes of Krishna with gopis. Okay. So there's also an area in the topmost planet of the spiritual world where Krishna has pastimes with those gopis who are ostensibly married to others. That's called the Parakiya pastimes. And there's another section in Svetadvipa are supplementary pastimes. Things that are more like awe and reverence and things like that. So Goloka, Vrindavan, and Svetadvipa are not different in Tattva. They're the same. Navadvipa is actually Svetadvipa and non-different from Vrindavan. The residents of Navadvipa are the most fortunate. They are associates of Gauranga. By piles of punya, one attains residence in Navadvipa. One particular rasa is not manifested in Vrindavan. In Navadvipa, that rasa is manifested. If one is qualified for this rasa of Dharya, then one realizes it. So, Odarya means basically compassion. Interesting, compassion. There's different rasas in the spiritual world. In Vrindavan, the primary ras, or description of all the rasas, is madhurya, sweetness. And in Navadvipa, the primary rasa, or description of the rasas, is audarya, compassion, mercy, overflowing love of God. That's what audarya means. So Navadvipa is sometimes known as Audarya Dham, means the abode of compassion. Audarya Dham. And, Goloka Vrindavan, Vrindavan section of the spiritual world is known as Madhurya Dham. Got it? And Vaikuntha planets are known as Aishvarya Dham. Aishvarya means opulence. Okay. Brajanath said, what is the size of Navadvipa? Babaji said Navadvipa is 16 kroshas in circumference. It is the shape of an 8-petal lotus. 8 petals. On the 8 petals are 8 islands, and in the center is the Parikarp, center of the lotus. The 8 islands on the petal are Samanta Dweep, Godram Dweepa, Madhya Dweepa, Kola Dweepa, Ritu Dweepa, Janu Dweepa, Bodhrama Dweepa, and Rudra Dweepa. Antar Dweepa, that's the 9th one, is in the center. In the center of Antar Dweep is Mayapur. So you got those 8 that are mentioned before, plus Antar Dweep, And in the center of Andhra is Mayapur, the Lord's most wonderful, Audarya, compassionate abode. In Navadvipa, and especially Mayapur, if one performs sadhana, the jiva will approach prema quickly. So you want to get to prema quickly. That's how you do it. In the center of Mayapur is the Maha Yoga Pit, the temple of Jagannath Mishra. That's where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. The Maha Yoga Pit. At that place, the fortunate soul will see the eternal pastimes of Gauranga. Now, one thing is, here you're talking about the temple of Jagannath Mishra, which is where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. But our temple in Mayapur is close to that temple, but we don't have the appearance place insofar as within the jurisdiction or the boundaries of our property. So the devotees were inquiring with Srila Prabhupada, or made inquiries to Srila Prabhupada about that. And Prabhupada said, which is more important, here's a quote, Janma or karma? So in this particular case, Janma means where the Lord appeared or where the Lord did his pastimes. And so Prabhupada indicated and told us that where the Lord enacts his pastimes is more important than where he actually came into this world. So where our temple is there, the temple of Vedic Planetarium and so many other temples, where that is there, then that's where the Lord performed his pastimes. So our property is actually more important, according to Prabhupada, than the Yoga Pith. So here's another question. Rajanath said, are the pastimes of Gauranga the action of the Swarup Shakti, the spiritual internal potency? And Babaji answers, just as Krishna's pastimes are the effect of the Swarup Shakti, the internal spiritual potency, Gauranga's pastimes are the effect of the Swarup Shakti. There's no difference at all between Krishna and Gauranga. Swarup Goswami has written, and actually his full name is Swarup Damodar Goswami, who was Lord Chaitanya's associate and stayed with Lord Chaitanya up until the end. This is a very, very important verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Just listen. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikuti Ladini Shakti Asmad Ekatmanavapi Bhuvi Pura Deha Bedam Gatau Tau Chaitanyakyam Brakatam Adunata Dvayam Chaikyam Apam Radha Avaduti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Sarupam. The loving affairs of Sri Radhakrishna are transcendental manifestations of the Ladini Shakti. Ladini Shakti, again, that's Radharani. It means pleasure potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they have separated themselves eternally. Now, these two transcendental identities, listen to this, have again united in the form of Sri Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Sri Krishna himself. That's from the CC Adi Lila 1.5. So this is the highest loving exchange. I mean, let's say you have two lovers. Forget about Krishna. Don't forget about Krishna, but let's take it out of a different context. And if the person, let's say the man, really appreciate the ladies or his girlfriends or whatever, love so much that he wants to enter into her mood, that's the highest loving exchange. If he actually wants to get in her mood so he can experience how she's loving him, and that's what Lord Chaitanya, or who Lord Chaitanya is. He's Krishna, who wants to experience the mood of Srimati Radharani for the purpose of appreciating himself from her perspective, for the purpose of appreciating her love and understanding her love, and for the purpose of enjoying from his topmost devotee's perspective. So this is a very important verse. The Adi Lila 1.5. Krishna and Chaitanya are eternally manifested. Who came first and who came last, one cannot say. First came Chaitanya, then Radha Krishna, or the two became one as Chaitanya. The conclusion is that no one came first and no one came later, because you're just thinking in terms of mundane time. So when you're thinking in terms of mundane time, then that doesn't work with the spiritual realm, because everything's eternal in the spiritual realm. The two manifestations are eternal. The pastimes of the Supreme Tattva are eternal. Whoever says the pastimes are different is most ignorant and devoid of ras. In other words, it's not going to get a taste for worshiping Krishna. They're not different. They're exactly the same. Prajnath said, if Gauranga is directly complete tattva, absolute truth, whatever, how does one worship him? Another important question. If one worships Gaura using a mantra having Gauranga's name, it is the same as worshipping Krishna with a mantra having Krishna's name. Worship Gaura with Krishna mantra or worship Krishna with Gaura mantra is the same. One who thinks they are different is ignorant and is a servant of Kali. That's the Yuga. Kali Yuga, really bad. Here's the question. Yes. Sometimes Chandravali is mentioned as one of the principal gopis. Of course, there's Radharani and the 8 Sakis. Anyway. Yes, sometimes there's different lists of the principal gopis. That is a fact. So we'll have to consult the Acharya. So, Brajanath says, so someone just asked a question, how does one obtain the mantra of the covered avatar? I mean, how do you get the Gauranga mantra? Well, it's very easy. I'm giving it to you. Go Ranga. Go Ranga. Go Ranga. And actually, the way Prabhupada gave us the Gauranga mantra is Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavrinda. That's also a Gauranga mantra, and actually that's very powerful. That's a bona fide mantra that we can chant, not on the beads, but we chant it during kirtan. Babaji said, the mantra of the covered avatar is written in a covered way in the Tantra or scripture, which describes clearly the well-known avatar's mantras. A person with uncooked intelligence can understand this. Wow. So the mantra of the covered avatar. So I just gave it to you, the mantra of the covered avatar. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda. This is interesting. Then the next question is really interesting. I don't know if I want to get into it. Yeah, I think we'll wait till we get into it because it talks about worship of Vishnu Priya and Gauranga and Gadadhar. And it gets into really esoteric things about worshiping. Anyway, so it's important to devote enough time rather than rushing through it. Because the next question we're going to deal with tomorrow was what is the method of worshiping Gauranga as a couple? And of course we do see the deities of Gaur Gadadhar, and Prabhupada had us worship Gaur Nitai. So we really have to discuss this at depth tomorrow during tomorrow's class. Okay, on that happy note, we are going to stop sharing and allow you to ask questions and unblur me. Hey, unblur. Hold on a second. I have to adjust my camera. I guess it looks like I went to the spiritual world. Give me a second. There I am, back in living color. So, all right, so you're allowed to unmute yourself so you can ask questions either by unmuting yourself, or you can raise your hand, or you can type something in the text window. So who has a question? We, many nice things we. Oh, here, Gopal Das Acharya. Okay.
Please accept my Day.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
you mentioned both today and yesterday that Krishna, anything that is not Krishna, we turn our face towards anything that is not Krishna, that's Maya. But Krishna is the supreme cause of all causes. So how can there be anything that we're turning our face to that isn't Krishna, other
that,
than our
that depends
consciousness?
on our conception. It's our conception that determines whether it's Krishna or not. If we see, let's see, if I turn my face towards this phone and I see it's meant to be used in Krishna's service, then rather than my enjoyment, then at that point I'm seeing Krishna there and it's Krishna's energy, there's material energy, then that is Krishna. I mean, not Krishna in the sense that I do a puja to the phone, but that's not the illusory energy then. The illusory energy is the conception when we look at something that makes it not Krishna.
So regarding service, there's five main rasas involved in service, and one of them is neutrality. And
Oh
the
yeah.
one feature of neutrality is appreciation. So if we appreciate some beautiful thing in nature, such as a sunset or sunrise or stars or something like that, and we think, wow, Krishna's creation is so wonderful, is that um, still devotional service and neutrality, or is it Maya, or does it depend on other factors?
Depends on our consciousness. If we think Krishna's creation is so wonderful, let me enjoy it, then there's a little bit of Maya there. But if we think Krishna's creation is so beautiful, Krishna must be much more infinitely beautiful than that. And it, in other words, by looking at Krishna's creation and seeing the beauty of it, if one begins to appreciate Krishna more, then it's spiritual. But if one just like gives lip service to the point that it's Krishna's creation and then just let me go for it, just like I'm going to give a really bad example now, so just buckle your seatbelt. So just let's say, oh my God, let's say, okay, Gopal. Let's say you see, oh
Go for it, Gurudev.
Yeah, let's say you see a beautiful girl, and you just say, "Oh,
Okay.
it's Krishna's creation. Let me enjoy it. Let me just look at her. You will be in Maya." Say, "Oh, look at how nice Krishna's creation is." Or if a girl sees like a muscular, handsome man, then you just say, "Look at that cool man. With his muscles."
Mm.
So one has to be very careful to enjoy spirit like that.
So the enjoying spirit is the hinge or the pivot
Yeah,
that makes it either Maya or Krishna consciousness.
that's right. Because then you're not seeing Krishna there. You're just using Krishna as an excuse, so you can immerse yourself in Krishna's illusory energy. Yeah.
That sounds accurate.
Otherwise, if it would always apply. We just look at beautiful. I'm going to just look at beautiful things. Just like everybody gives me a. Not everybody. There's a particular devotee who gives me a copy of National Geographic every month. Well, this devotee's name. Actually, I don't have any taste for looking at it anymore. It's just extremely boring. But let's say as I was just looking at all that, let me go through and see, wow, there's a beautiful mountain, there's a beautiful this, a beautiful that. Not too many beautiful girls in National Geographic. Thank God. So anyways, So, so anyway, it's a question of the enjoying spirit, you know. But if seeing those beautiful things makes us appreciate Krishna more. I mean, just like the other day, I was walking to the temple early in the morning, and all these nice birds were chirping, chirp, 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 and I was just thinking, Krishna is so amazing, So I was using it as an opportunity to glorify Krishna. However, if I was in a different mood and just say, let me listen to all the birds chirping, it's Krishna's. It's a manifestation of Krishna, but sure is beautiful. And I get into the bird maya. It's a fine line, It's a fine line. So, if I was to get into here's a joke. If I was to get into bird maya, then all of a sudden, starting to think how beautiful the birds were, then all of a sudden I'd feel something on top of my head. And it would be one of the bird's remnants. And one time, actually this is interesting, I'll tell you when it really happened. One time I was in Australia, and I was appreciating the birds there, and then all of a sudden the birds started to attack me. And they have this time in Australia called the magpie time. And then maybe you've heard about this before. When the magpies are nesting, it lasts for about 3 weeks, then anybody who goes within 200 meters of their tree, they swoop. I mean, I literally got attacked many times by magpies in Australia. And it's not pretty. I mean, they can actually go for your eyes. Fortunately, I keep my glasses on. And especially if you're riding a bicycle, the magpies attack you. So that was my lesson, to not try to enjoy the magpies. All right, so Krishna Priya has a question.
To set my obeisances. Thank you so much for going through this Jaiva Dharma. So I was remembering when you were speaking about the yoga pith and Maya Kordam and being so you're so compassionate. I remember years ago when I used to do seminars with His Holiness Bhakti Swami. He used to always really stress to us the point that in this day and age, the way to enter into the loving pastimes of Radha and Krishna is to first go through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Navadvip Dham, and then one will be able to enter into the loving pastimes and be engaged in service. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously one should study, just like before we chant Hare Krishna Mahaprabhu, Hare Krishna mantra, we actually chant the Panchatattva mantra. Prabhupada gave us that instruction, because the Panchatattva Maha mantra is more compassionate than the Hare Krishna Maha mantra. So we approach Lord Chaitanya. Even if one, when they go to India, goes to Vrindavan first, the Prabhupada never told us that we have to go to Mayapur before we go to Vrindavan on our India tour. Even if one goes to Vrindavan first, but at least one should approach Vrindavan with the understanding that by the mercy of Chaitanya, through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, then one can actually approach Vrindavan at that particular point. And Lord Chaitanya spent time, just like when we go to Vrindavan, we actually go to where Lord Chaitanya spent time. So there's a non-difference between Vrindavan and Sridham Mayapur. I mean, where there's Lord Chaitanya's footprints in different places, especially you go around Govardhan, you find Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's footprints in certain places. Yeah, in the Chaturbhuj temple, right next to the Chaturbhuj temple, there's Chaturbhuj means four-armed Krishna temple. There are the footprints of Lord Chaitanya, where Lord Chaitanya used to chant, and there's a lake, the Lakshmi Lake, right there. And that's where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to chant. So many places you'll find Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, even in Braj. So, good question.
One more thing. There was one more thing I was also reflecting on when you were speaking about, when you were speaking about the different expansions of the expansions and expansions. And I was just reflecting upon how important it is to come into succession and to really develop like faith in hearing from one spiritual master and understanding Guru Tattva, because like if it wasn't, say, for instance, Prabhupada's mercy, how those of us that had no background in any, Vedic culture, and how would we possibly have been able to hear and accept all these things? And it seems that it's by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada that we had faith in his words.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we actually have to always understand we're approaching through Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and everything. Just like even before we chant the Panchatattva mantra, we chant Prabhupada's mantra, the Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Pasyashati Shatarni. Okay, that's good. That's all we have time for today. So thank you very much. We will see everybody tomorrow, and we talk about more of these amazing realizations of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's amazing, amazing, amazing book, this Jaiva Dharma. Okay.